Before we start today's podcast, let me tell you about the Oxford Exxon and Blue Sky there on Highway 6 in Oxford. Go inside and fill up your stadium cup. You get that stadium cup at the Pavilion or at Swayze Field throughout the season. Keep the cup. Go in. 49 cents to quench your thirst there with the Oxford Exxon and Blue Sky every time you pass by. Also save money at the pump with the mobile rewards app, the Speed Pass Plus program, and much more. Also coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio, 662-257-1900. Highway 25 South there in Amory. Give Corey Clark a call. You get a quote within 15 minutes during business hours. Shop it around, take it, whatever you want to do with it. At the end of the day, it's going to be your best deal. Mention the podcast, and he'll knock another $500 off the price there at Clark Ford. Now to the show.
From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in. But why am I going to give you a round of applause for something that you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
That broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Friday morning edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio. Today on the show, we will talk about some interviews from spring football last night. Both coordinators, Rich Rodriguez, Mike MacIntyre, were given to the media for interviews, as well as Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral. Also, long baseball conversation today with Brian Scott Rippee. He is the Ole Miss beat writer for Supertalk Mississippi. Also, you can find him in different segments on Sports Talk Mississippi from 3 to 6 across the state. So we'll talk baseball with him here in a little bit. Basketball, obviously, in Fayetteville tomorrow for the Rebels and Razorbacks. Huge one coming off that heartbreaking loss for Ole Miss to Tennessee in the midweek. But let's start with spring football, Neal. I watched the videos. You were there to cover it. You were there to record the videos. And I was kind of laughing because we always talk about, hey, not much in these things. It's you sort of zone out a little bit. And zoning out might have been a mistake last night because Matt Corral sort of lulled you to sleep, and then he had some fire in there at times. I mean, it was that deal where it was respectful, and there was never like any tone or anything. But especially if you look at a transcript, probably, I don't think, even though he was the reason he signed in some ways, I don't think he and Mr. Longo's offense necessarily jived throughout the early part of Mr. Corral's career.
Between him and Rich Rodriguez yesterday, I mean, let me just set for the people who love the inside baseball portion of media stuff. We got Matt first, and it was good. And then we got Rich next. And it was good, and if you read between the lines on his, it was interesting. And then, bless his heart, Mike MacIntyre took the stage, and we were all pretty punch drunk by that point. And by the time Mike MacIntyre took the stage, we really didn't have any questions. I think we were kind of ready to start dissecting what had just happened with Corral and Rodriguez. And so Mike MacIntyre spent less than 3 minutes talking to us because, quite frankly, we really didn't have much to ask at that point. We'll do probably a better job the next time around. But
it was going to be really tough for MacIntyre to become the story last night. Let's put it that way. Like, he would have had to have come in and thrown some fire out to overtake what we'd already seen on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, the question I wish I had now asked of Mike in light of what was said about Longo was, how much reteaching of fundamentals are you having to do? But I don't think, based on what I've seen from Mike MacIntyre, I don't think he would take that bait. I just think he would. I think he's going to coach defense. Look, let me say this about Mike MacIntyre. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. It's very clear. I watched him some at practice yesterday, and he's a coach. He's coaching. They're coaching. They're going to get lined up right. They're going to have a plan. They're going to be prepared, and they're going to play hard. Now, are they talented enough? I don't know. We'll see. I can't. I don't know. And watching them in shorts, and if you don't believe me when I say this, both coaches say this on the tapes. Watching football when the pads are not on is not real football, and so you can't make judgments. You just can't. You don't know who's going to be you don't know what a good football player is until you watch them play football. And when you play football without pads, it's not really football, and so you don't really know. So let's hold off on any judgments about who is or who is not going to be impactful until later in the spring and probably into fall camp when people have actually played football. So is that cool? So, but for the rest of it, what was fascinating was some of the I started to call them jabs, but they weren't jabs. They were roundhouse punches that he would just throw out of nowhere at the offense, at the scheme. The line that just got me was, we didn't read coverages. And it was like, wait, hold on. What?
Well, what's interesting about that, and when you hear him say it and then knowing what we know now, it adds so much more punch to it, kind of borrowing a word that you said. But, from the very beginning, we knew that. I just don't know that it ever really sunk in. Because if you recall, at the very beginning, the whole deal was Longo's system was, hey, the wide receivers read whatever and just go to areas, then they tell the quarterback. Remember? Yeah. And it was this whole deal. It was it was completely opposite of what you typically hear from how an offense works. It was the quarterback had very little reading assignments, and I don't know that we ever really sat down and thought, wait, hold on, what the hell? Like, we knew it, but it just sort of kind of went by the wayside a little bit until you hear Corral go, well, we weren't really doing anything.
It's that really funny media line where you and I would talk about it, and we'd hint at it, but when everyone around it is saying, this offense works and blah, 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 I mean, I don't know enough football, and you don't know enough football to come back and be able to say, well, here's why it doesn't work. I did start noting last year, and you did too, that it's not working against good defenses. And it very clearly isn't simply because of talent. Now, I don't know that the quarterback was as talented as, and when I say this, I'm not ripping Jordan. I don't know that he had I don't know that Jordan Ta'amu had the arm talent that some people say that he does. And I'm not convinced that Jordan Ta'amu could read defenses in large part because I don't think that was taught in the film room. And therein lies what I think is, if you want to go back and dissect the offense from the last couple of years, therein lies the rub. If you played against bad defenses and you kind of knew exactly what they were going to do, well, you would dissect it. But if you played against good defenses that could adjust and throw different looks and throw a late look at you right before the snap, I don't know that the quarterbacks – we were always told, well, here's what we were told kind of off the record, right, was that Jordan had a hard time reading defenses. Well, now we know that you put no emphasis on reading defenses in any of your film work. So if you don't practice reading defenses, how the hell are you going to read them when Nick Saban's throwing them at you?
That was a jab to a right cross or whatever you want to call it. The uppercut for the knockout was the one about there's no logic. There's logic behind what we're doing now, essentially.
Yeah.
That was like, whoa.
Between that one and Rich Rodriguez making a comment about we don't really talk about the past. It's like it's taboo. He's like, I mean, if there's something that they did that kind of relates, we'll use it for, to help them with their adjustment. But then and I've got to go back and listen. Full disclosure, I came home last night dealing with a family matter. I intended to write more than I did last night, but sometimes life happens. If you're out there, you understand life happens. I put up the videos because the videos were compelling. I didn't get a chance to go back and dissect them the way that I wanted to. I will at some point this weekend, I promise. I know that I did not do my job to the utmost of my ability. But again, life happened last night, and life happens in your lives. And when it does, sometimes you got to put life first, and I did. So anyway, Rodriguez made a comment about, and I've got to go back and listen to it, but it was about wide receivers, and they're really having to This goes back to something that we've heard for a while. They've had to almost go back and reteach routes, and that's not on Peeler. That's a Longo thing. I mean, Longo literally admitted out loud that one of the routes was just get open, and that's not a route in a passing tree.
Yeah, find space.
Yeah, chase space, find space, eat space, whatever the hell, space. I don't hear that word out of Rodriguez. Rodriguez is very clearly dovetailing with something that we talked about, I don't know, earlier in the week, last week, sometime. The days truly run together at this point. Rodriguez is not going to tell us what they're going to do. He's not going to say, yeah, here's the mix that we're looking for. The Grove Bowl, I promise you, is going to be a battle of vanilla ice cream versus vanilla ice cream. No one's going to see Jack in that game. So come and watch football and all that stuff if you'd like. But if you're coming hoping to dissect it to get a preview of what's coming in August and September, you're going to be disappointed. Other than, hey, they're going to try to be more physical. They're going to try to be more aggressive, that kind of thing. It was just there was a lot of little comments that were made that on the offensive end that really give you an insight into just how frustrated that team was a year ago.
Yeah, you're getting more pieces since it's passed. You're getting more parts of the puzzle to be able to kind of figure that out. And also, I just think from a fan base standpoint, from a media standpoint, because he's always been good with the media and he's still going to, I mean, Ole Miss does allow their coordinators to talk. Rich Rodriguez is going to be pretty interesting all season because, I mean, my favorite part, and I don't hate, I mean, I understood what Nick meant. I'm not making fun of the media member at all, but like Nick Suss of the Clarion Ledger, he goes, hey, is it a little easier to teach some of these things because they're all new? And now the meaning being you're not having to replace bad habits. You start from scratch, whatever. Yeah. And Rodriguez is like, hell no. I'd love those guys that are in the combine. That'd be great.
Yeah. No, if you offered Rodriguez, Greg Little, and Dawson Knox, and A.J. Brown, and DK Metcalf right now, he'd say, yep, deal, done.
I'll teach them the new stuff. It'll be all right. We'll figure it out.
And then he came back, and he goes, look, I mean, we are what we are.
Yeah.
And Nick followed up with, well, you know what I mean. There's no seniors really in your room, and it was a funny little interaction. Rodriguez is sharp. He's witty, and David Johnson kind of asked him about something about what they're going to look like, and it was playful. Rodriguez was like, well, why the hell would I tell you? You know, and it was, I mean, if you promise to write it and just put it in your closet, but no, we're not giving that away. And then he came back with what I really appreciated, which is, look, guys, it's just 11 people. I mean, the people that try to make this into mad science, come on, man, it's football. You know, I mean, you're going to figure it. The opponents are going to figure out, because they're paid a good bit of money to figure out what's Rodriguez is trying to do fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. They're going to dissect a lot of film, but what I thought was interesting with Rodriguez from talking to people yesterday was, you know, he took a year off. That year off did a lot of things. Refreshed him. Gave him some perspective. And then what he did was he went and started, you know, because coaches know each other, most of them have kind of fraternities, some don't. Damn, it's got cold in here all of a sudden. Some don't, but most of them do. And he went out and went to some NFL teams, just like hung out in the meeting room, went to practice, talked, went to some colleges, hung out in the meeting room, listened to the coaches, watched some film, talked. Because let's face it, Rich Rodriguez is considered kind of an offensive genius inside his profession. So when he calls a team and says, hey, can I come hang out for a couple of days? Yeah, because they're going to pick his brain. Well, he picked some of their brains too and had plenty of time to think about it because he wasn't having to put together a game plan for Arizona State or Cal or Stanford or whoever. And so he's got some fresh stuff in his mind. Now, one of the things he said that I thought was interesting was that, they've installed a lot. He was like, as a credit to the kids, they've absorbed it. He said, but we're having to slow it down now, and we're having to scale it back. We might have even thrown too much at them. So, it's a slow it down. And he had talked about how, you don't want to be stressed out all summer with do they understand it. But he also admitted that, hey, we got a lot of guys coming in August. Coming in the summer to practice in August that, they're not here right now. And basically him saying, we're going to have to kind of do it again, which is what I've talked about too, which is, I'm being roundabout. I'm sorry, my mind's a little scattered, but this is going to be a young team. It's a really young team. And that's a storyline. It's not an excuse. It's a storyline. This is a young team. There's not a lot. Rodriguez talked about the offensive line, for example. He goes, yeah, there's some talent there. And I kind of like what I see. They're not in pads, so you don't know. He goes, but I've got a bunch of guys in that room that really haven't played. I got a couple that have, but I got a bunch of guys that really haven't played. And so you don't know. And you don't know could end up being good. It could end up being bad. You don't know. There's a lot of unknown about Ole Miss on really both sides of the ball, but especially offense going into this year.
Yeah, and I really, we're kind of dovetailing ourselves here, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think we even know what this thing is going to look like until Memphis and Arkansas, and it rolls out there just like the opponents. We're not, just because we cover this team, we're not going to have some great idea any more than anyone else. It's going to be a partly frustrating fall camp for fans in a way, other than just probably their expectations and excitement on finally seeing it on the field. Because I don't think we'll be able to speak intelligently about what this thing is going to look like, because
No.
I don't even if we are going to have an idea on run pass tendencies of all things.
Before the first game?
Yeah, nothing.
We're absolutely not. I can tell you now, we're not going to see a scrimmage. I'm going to flat tell you that right now. No chance. Zero chance. There is not going to be an open scrimmage. That is not going to happen. It is, and I don't blame them. I'm telling you, I know, like we talked about this on Greatest Pod in the South, and it's up. I need to put a link on the message board, but it's up.
It's on iTunes. It was in my feed this morning.
Yeah, and I've made a content item of it because it was good. We talked about Missouri's practices wide open, everybody's available, and that's cool. Listen, I would never complain about access, but I understand why Ole Miss is being tight with their access to the actual practice. I get it, 100%. And as long as we get to talk to players and coaches afterwards, I'm cool. That's good. Because what Corral and Rodriguez and MacIntyre said yesterday is far more interesting than me trying to figure out who looks good in shorts.
Corral was a pretty good presence yesterday. And again, all jokes aside, I'm not getting back on the horse here, but he's done a ton of interviews in his life. He was a highly ranked recruit to multiple schools. He's got to harness the energy or the whatever you want to call it from the state game and what you've just seen from him in general. But if he can find a way to balance that, he's got a really good kind of leadership demeanor about him. He's got some edge in a positive way. He's just young. He's got to mature and figure out how to make that into a positive instead of a negative. And that's one of my more interested things from the season as he kind of moves forward is they're going to have some good moments. They're going to have some adversity. They got a lot of new pieces. He's a new piece. It's kind of how Matt Corral manages everything because he has the intangibles, but then he can't let it boil over and overflow at the same time. And that is A1 what is on my mind the most as they go into this season.
Oh, it's absolutely the case. Now, I thought he I thought he acquitted himself really well in that interview yesterday. I thought he came across as a little more thoughtful than maybe he did at times last year. I thought he came across as a bit more mature. Or mature. I get made fun of for the way I say that word. I don't know. You're right. That room is going to. Rich Rodriguez is going to walk into his quarterback room every day in fall camp, and he's going to look at 4 guys who are freshmen, 1 redshirt freshman and 3 true freshmen in that room. So when people go, "Oh, is that a young team?" Hell yeah, it's a young team. So there's a lot of – it's a lot on Matt Corral. He was asked a question about, what are you doing to kind of shepherd the young guys? And I kind of giggled to myself, like, he is one of the young guys. It's not like as a senior and a fifth-year senior in that room dealing with a sophomore and a freshman where he goes, hey, fellas, let me show you this. Matt Corral has played in 4 games. He has only played significant snaps in 1 game. I mean, Matt Corral is a freshman.
Well, yeah, we all ask stupid stuff. I'm not making fun of anybody, but there was one question last night. It was like, hey, yeah, how are you kind of handling and helping the young guys? It's like, he has more experience, but it ain't a lot. And you've got a new coordinator. It's a new system. He's as blind as anybody right now, other than just understanding the rigors of the day-to-day student athlete at the college level.
Yeah, I don't think Matt's, and this is not a slap at Matt at all. So if you're a Corral family member listening to this, this is me defending your son, not attacking him. I think asking Matt to be a tutor for the other players right now is too much. That's going to be Rodriguez's job. And frankly, I think Rodriguez is kind of excited about it. Honestly, I think he is. I think he's excited about having a bunch of young guys. He knows there's going to be growing pains. And ladies and gentlemen, there are going to be growing pains. He knows that Matt's going to make freshman mistakes. He knows that these young receivers are going to make freshman mistakes. He knows this offensive line is going to make rookie mistakes. But you could kind of see in Rodriguez a little bit of this is kind of going to be fun. He's a football coach. Football's fun. He's got to make sure, and he kind of referenced this yesterday. He's got to make sure that he doesn't. Look, Rich Rodriguez. I'm interrupting myself. Rich Rodriguez could get on a whiteboard and just go crazy. He could do the mad science stuff, and the football junkie could watch hours and hours and hours of that, right? And it would be so entertaining, and you'd be like, "Wow, man, this is awesome." But when you're dealing with 11 kids, and a bunch of them are playing college football for the first time, there is such a thing as too much, where now they're thinking and they're not reacting. Now they're thinking and they're not playing. Now they're so deep in their thoughts and trying to recall and stuff that they're not being aggressive and physical. And now you just beat yourself coaching. And he didn't say it in those words, but that's kind of what he meant was, I got to be careful that I don't throw too much at him.
Yeah. I've
got to be aware of there's a learning curve. Yeah. I've got to be aware of we got to do this in kind of an installation, and that installation in fall camp is going to be he's got to for example, let's say Jerry and Ely shows up, and if Jerry and Ely shows up, he's going to be a big part of that offense. But Jerry and Ely has played 0 snaps of college football, and so you're going to throw a book at Jerry and Ely that at first blush is going to be basically in German. And so they've got to be careful with how they do all of that stuff. And they know it. I think they're excited about it. And they reference all these young wide receivers that are coming in. They're going to be swimming for a while because the guys right now are swimming. So those guys are going to be swimming. So August is going to be interesting because we're not going to know jack.
Yeah.
And then, those first 2, 3, 4 games, I think it's going to be a lot of revelations at that point.
More football in a bit on the show. In a second, we're going to go to Brian Scott and talk some baseball. Before we do that, I'll tell you about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. One of the oldest mortgage companies in the Southeast, and all underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. So you're getting local underwriting and understands your market, a leader in condo financing in Oxford, and the float-down option. Because you get the lowest rate. And if it goes down, you get that rate as well before you close. 662-234-2704 or JLOWE@communitymtg.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, that's the place to go. They have a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles. Go in, test drive one today. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. We're also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX legacy realty agent. Harry's been in Oxford more than 4 decades. No one knows the residential and condo market in Oxford better than Harry. Go to his site. He'll prove it to you. HarryAlexander.com. Click on the Properties and Neighborhoods tab. and then send him an email, ha@harryalexander.com. Join the men's tennis team as they take on Kentucky tonight at 6. It's they open up SEC play with the Wildcats. Fans receive free Chick-fil-A, and admission is free. For more information, visit OleMissSports.com. The Ole Miss softball team returns to Oxford as they host the Ole Miss Classic this weekend, beginning with Pittsburgh tonight at 6. Admission is free. For more info, visit OleMissSports.com. And the 10th-ranked Ole Miss baseball team returns to Swayze this weekend for a series with Long Beach State. General admission tickets are on sale for Game 1 tonight at 6:30. For more information, visit OleMissGameDay.com. Guest will join us on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law. They specialize in personal injury law and real estate law, but theirs is a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. When you contact Patterson and Earhart, you speak to one of the partners in the firm, and that's who will handle your case, not some paralegal at a faceless corporate firm. If Patterson and Earhart can't help you, they'll refer you to someone who can. John Calvin Patterson and Wes Earhart are Ole Miss guys. They're local guys, and when you call them, you're going to get one of them on the phone within the same day, guaranteed. So whether you've been injured in a car wreck or have other legal issues, give them a call, 662-526-1992, or check out their website, pelaws.com. Your initial consultation's free.
Podcast is brought to you by Blow Dry Bar Oxford, 662-638-3310, 1801 Jackson Avenue, 10 to 6, Tuesday to Friday, and 10 to 3 even on Saturdays for coming in town tomorrow. If you would like to buy a gift card, you can do that. Mention rebelgrove.com, get a discount in doing that. Everything from their very popular blowout to many other services for that lady in your life, or if you're one of our ladies listening, take care of yourself with Blow Dry Bar Oxford. Again, 10 to 6, Tuesday to Friday, 10 to 3 on Saturday. Oxford's best new business in 2018, 662-638-3310. Now, Brian Scott Rippee on the Patterson Earhart hotline. Brian, appreciate you giving me a little time today. Mostly just chat about baseball. I know you were double dipping a good bit. You got basketball going on too, but baseball entertaining Long Beach State this weekend. And, you know, frankly, a series that Ole Miss scheduled thinking, hey, West Coast team, even though West Coast teams don't have great RPIs, it's going to be a talented program and going to be something different. And I do think their style of play is good for Ole Miss to see, but the Dirtbags are 0-7, I noticed today. They have not won a game all season. Now, 3 of them were to Florida. But still, they're not playing well. They're in full rebuild mode. I mean, this is getting to a point because of the West Coast RPI stuff where the Rebels might have to sweep this thing just to avoid some kind of bomb on their resume come May.
Yeah, they can't afford to have the non-clean kind of lethargic game that they've had the last 2 weekends. I say lethargic. That's not really accurate in describing last week as well as the 2A. But to your point, they probably need to sweep it. Doesn't this feel like kind of a get-right weekend where they kind of figure out some rotation stuff against a team that really hasn't hit the ball at all?
That would be the hope, because that's what you looked at. Glad you kind of went there, because I was checking out Long Beach State, and they just can't score runs. I mean, at all. They haven't scored more than like 3 or 4 runs most games. They've lost some close games. Their pitching's been okay, but if Ole Miss gets into a situation where all weekend they can't get the Dirtbags out, we might legitimately be from, hey, let me just turn an eye, see what this looks like, to a big problem. And now, as of right now, let's tell everybody we're recording this at 2:23 on Thursday, so I have not heard whether Will Etheridge is pitching as of right now for the weekend. But to me, it's not even really about Etheridge. You know what he's going to do, so that part's irrelevant to me. To me, it's about Gunnar Hoagland, because they really want him in the rotation. He was the number 2 guy all through inter-squads, and I wrote in my mailbag this week that he looks like a guy who just got everybody out on his fastball in high school, and that this transition's getting at him because he's either kind of freaking out and going out of the zone, and then to come back in it, he's just throwing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs right over the middle of the plate. Well, he's not facing Florida 3A hitters anymore, and they're teeing off on it. So in some ways, he's still transitioning on just how to learn to pitch.
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, he's catching too much of the plate too often with his fastballs, and then a lot of his secondary stuff's been a bit erratic. I think he's going to be, like, my sense is, particularly since he's on Sundays and he really just kind of needs them to give him a chance to win, that he'll develop and he'll figure that out on the fly and stay in the rotation and be fine. To me, what I'm kind of looking at this weekend is, how does Saturday shake out for this team going forward? Because Zach Phillips and Roth get another start each, at least one, don't you think? And you think that kind of shores itself up, but Phillips really hasn't given any sort of evidence to suggest that it'll be anything other than what it's been the last two outings. And so that to me is really where things might not go awry, but where things get interesting with this team. Because, like I said, I think Conklin, he's done enough good things. Like he flips over some breaking balls every now and then where you're kind of like, oh, I see the elite stuff from this guy, and he'll figure it out once, like you said, he learns how to pitch instead of just throw to guys. But where do you think Saturday goes? Because if Roth or Phillips doesn't figure it out, doesn't it feel like you kind of got to make a move, whether it's Nikhazy or Jofi?
It seems like he's begging Phillips to figure it out because Roth can be good in the bullpen. I'm not really sure. Even though at the next level, I think Phillips is probably a reliever just because of his kind of frame and stature. I don't know how that translates to right now at the college game. So I kind of feel Mike just begging Phillips to settle in, to give him something, to be able to be that serviceable starter on one of those 2 days, preferably Saturday. But I think he has some flexibility all of a sudden. And this is going to be a weird statement given that the bullpen's had a couple ridiculous outings. Now, one with the wind on Saturday, the longer it kind of gets from that game, I'm sort of forgiving them because we're talking about a sustained 20, 25-mile-an-hour wind where everybody's hit the ball out of the ballpark. I mean, Thomas Dillard's really, really strong, but he hit that ball out of the park with one hand off the end of the bat. That thing's not getting out of there with normal wind on that first home run Saturday. But point being, I think Doug Nikhazy is the wild card here that allows some other things to happen. Nikhazy, he bounces back quickly. This past week, he threw Wednesday, he threw Friday, he threw Sunday. So he only needed one day in the middle twice during a 3-outing week. He's been really, really electric. Frankly, he's been the best freshman so far. And I think with his emergence, Mike didn't have to worry about Roth being that, hey, you've got to replace Caracci or you got to replace so-and-so when something happens swing guy. I think he can give Roth some more starts, see if he can settle into the rotation, and maybe that makes sense because I think going into the year, he chose Phillips as the starter instead of Roth simply because of Roth's versatility. But if you're going to get some things out of Nikhazy and maybe even Connor Green, that's not as important right now. So if Roth's shoulder's okay and he looks good in the starting spot, I think he has a really good chance to kind of nail one down and be that number 2 guy behind Etheridge.
I think so, too. But like you said in the beginning of that, I think in a perfect world, he hopes Phillips figures it out.
Yeah. Well, it gives you a left-hander, too.
Right, and it does he does have some flexibility. To me, like if I'm Mike Bianco heading into these last couple of non-conference weekends, I'm not necessarily worried about the bullpen. Yes, you kind of had the weird outing a couple of weird outings, particularly the one Saturday, like you said, the wind blowing out. But overall, they've been pretty good, and he's got a lot of guys put together solid relief outings. You saw an example of that. Yes, UT Martin's not any good, but they had to fill up 7 1/3 innings, I believe, behind Fowler. On Tuesday, and they did that giving up, I think, a run on 4 hits, and a lot of different guys pitched well. So I think the bullpen's fine. It'll be interesting to see how Saturday fleshes itself out. I think you're right. I think it probably ends up being Roth. But in Bianco's mind, I imagine he's hoping it's Phillips because, like you said, I don't really know what Phillips out of the bullpen looks like at this level, even if going forward at the next level playing professional baseball, he probably is a reliever.
You saw him on Tuesday. I did not. And you were gone at the end of last season covering the Reds when he really kind of took his step and was emerging as what we thought at the time was probably a fixture in the Ole Miss rotation. What in the world went on with Jordan Fowler Tuesday night?
It's just it seems like his stuff is a little flat, and I think the velocity, for best I could tell, I was following some football stuff and doing a radio at the very beginning of the game, but best I could tell, the velocity was down a tick, but it just seems like whatever life he had on the fastball and even some of the stuff behind it is just not there anymore. And I think I was talking to Ben up there at some point in that game, and I said, if you had given me $100 bet last May or last April that Jordan Fowler's a weekend rotation guy next year, I'm probably taking that in a heartbeat, and it's turned quite dramatically since. And I'm not exactly sure what it is. Don't you think maybe some of it has to be a little mental at this point? But as you said, a guy that really took a step forward at the end of last year has had quite the regression.
Yeah, he's a guy that at the end of last year, I thought he had a ton of confidence. He almost had a cockiness about him. I mean, we've laughed about how at least he talked about the way he was mentally processing the game and things last year. And we're just not seeing that. Frankly, he looked freaked out from the very first pitch Tuesday night, even though I was just watching on Rebel Vision or whatever it's called at the time. And he just – there's no comfort. I mean, it almost seems like he's more comfortable coming out of the bullpen all of a sudden when that was nowhere near his profile. And, I mean, that's where I give Mike Bianco a little bit of credit. Is he's sort of kind of figuring this thing out slowly. When you know as well as I do, going into the fall, he thought, okay, I've got Jordan Fowler and I've got Greer Holston. That's going to be a starter. That might be 2 starters. That might be the guy that replaces Will Etheridge in that swing bullpen role. And he didn't have either. Fowler's not pitching well at all. And then we haven't even seen Holston, a guy that has lost a lot of velocity per Mike, who is still traveling on the road but hasn't gotten in a game. And frankly, I don't, until he comes in and shows it, I have no way to even project that Holston's really going to be a member of this staff in any meaningful way moving forward.
Yeah, I was about to say, from everything I've gathered, it doesn't seem like he's in a position to even be in a game of any kind to help the team. I don't think he's there. He's at whatever place he's in is severe enough to where I don't think they can put him in a game. And you're right, because Mike was already having to replace 3 rotation starters, and then 2 of the most likely candidates, or so you thought, are not giving you hardly anything at all. And so he's having to try to figure out this thing on the fly, and he has the benefit of having options, particularly some of the newcomers, whether it was Phillips or DeCasey or obviously Roth and Hoagland. You had some options, but I think part of this, don't you think some of this was a little bit undersold in the offseason? I know the rotation wasn't great last season, but replacing 3 slots and just the newness of that and nothing else is not an easy transition.
No, I mean, I think in some ways, myself, media in general, I mean, everybody, we probably did a little bit of a crap job with that, just talking about how difficult that is. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is Mike's always could put good pitching staffs on the field, so we just sort of trust it from a media standpoint that of all the problems, they're going to figure that part out. And then also, we sort of knew the names. I mean, everybody thought that Will Etheridge coming in from day one as a recruit was going to be a weekend starter. Roth looked good at times. We mentioned Holston and Fowler. We just thought the pieces were there, and then we thought there was enough of a bullpen. But he's got a big challenge on his hands. I mean, the year that it reminds me of is 2006, and Ole Miss probably hopes that's the case. He had to replace all 3 guys from that 05 staff, and then he had to shuffle them again mid-season. The guys that started the first weekend were nowhere near the guys there toward the end of the year, a team that ended up hosting a regional and winning the SEC tournament. So he's done it so much in the past that I think we just gave a benefit of the doubt, and it's still way early. We've only had 2 weekends so far, but it's interesting nonetheless. And then I don't want to switch to the lineup for a minute because I got a hypothetical I want to ask you we've been doing all day. But first, you've got Olenek. He's hitting 400, 500. He's obviously led off in the past. You've got some analytical people that think Dillard should be doing it. Just to make him comfortable, give a little protection, and try something out, is it time to kind of move Gray around a little bit?
I think so. I think because you have that flexibility with a number of guys that can swing it. I think so because, I mean, it seems almost criminal that Dillard is batting 4th, right? I mean, you're simply just taking at bats away from the guy at this point. So, yes, but isn't it Mike's battling his traditionalist self, if that even makes any sense, right? Like, Gray is the traditionalist leadoff hitter, right? He doesn't strike out. He puts together good at-bats, and he puts the ball in play a lot. So he's having to battle kind of some of the norms that he's really managed with throughout his entire career. So does it happen? I don't know. Is it probably a good thing or a good time to experiment with it? Yes, don't you think?
I'd like to play with a lineup where maybe Servideo leads off. I want to see a little more of him, but I think he has a potential to lead off. Maybe put Dillard in the 2-hole, so you guarantee he hits every first inning. You put Keenan in the 3. You put whomever in the 4, Zabowski, I guess. And then maybe put Olenek 5. Like, he did that the one day in New Orleans, and I really liked Olenek in the 5. I think it lets him swing away. It gives him some RBI potential. It doesn't really clog him up on the bases too much as well. And then maybe at Gray at 6. I just feel like to get him going, he's hitting 222 so far this season. He just needs a little bit of protection and something kind of out of that island. I think they can move some guys around, and it might jumpstart a little bit of everything. However, at the moment, it's a little nitpicky considering how many runs the offense is scoring per game. There's probably a little bit of, hey, even though some individual parts are kind of rusted, Mike probably doesn't want to break what's not broken right now.
Right, I would agree with that. But, yes, I don't think Gray hitting in the leadoff hole is doing him any favors as far as getting that going. And yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see Dillard hit out of the 2-hole and Olynyk in the 5 just to shake things up and see how that goes. But you're right, it does feel kind of nitpicky because the offense has really changed a lot of games for them very quickly already this season and has covered up a lot of blemishes from the starting pitching staff so far.
Take our break in our talk with Brian Rippee to tell you about Mastercuts Lawn and Landscape, 662-607-7773, mastercutslawn.com. They're planting some hydrangeas for me this morning. They can do lots of things for you in signing an annual contract. They'll take care of your normal maintenance all year long for 2019. Flower beds, flowers, as I said. Also, they build things, custom playgrounds, fences, decks, and more. You can send them an email at info@gomastercuts.com or get that free quote, 662-607-7773.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's been one of those days where if I could tell you what was going on, you'd be like, wow. My post-game column, I'll be in Fayetteville tomorrow for Ole Miss and Arkansas. My post-game column and this podcast are also sponsored by our really good friends at Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust is based in Madison, Mississippi. It represents clients in 24 states. It has advisors in 3 states. Here's what they do. Stacy Wall and the people there at Pinnacle Trust, they sit down with you. They find out everything that's going on in your financial life. They talk about your retirement plans because different people have different retirement plans. We talked about this the other day. Some people want to travel the world. That's cool. And some people just want to stay home and be grandparents and tend to their garden. And that's cool too. But there's different needs. Some people want to retire later. Some people want to retire earlier. So what they do is they study your expenses. They study your wealth, whatever level of wealth you have. And then they put a plan together that's just for you. Basically, they build a box that is just for you. It's pintrust.com, PINN trust.com. Mention that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fee. We're also brought to you by the Westin Jackson. Restore serenity to your soul at Soul Spa. I need to do that right about now. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. Indulge in personalized massages, signature facials, soothing body treatments, and so much more on their extensive spa list. So escape from the everyday and rejuvenate yourself in their luxury spa today. And then go over to Estelle. It's right there in the beautiful Westin Jackson, and get a creative craft cocktail. Get a glass of fine wine. They've got all that you could want there at Estelle. They also are open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. The food is fantastic. Chef Caden's mission is to connect guests with the community through local partnerships. So gather at Estelle tonight.
Back to our interview with Brian Scott Rippee on the Patterson-Earhart Hotline. This was on the board today a good bit. I was asking my mailbag, and I kind of altered it a little bit. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I put it on Twitter this morning. We'll get your opinion, because Neil has not covered this team, so he had not much of an idea of the roster. We talked about it on Thursday's podcast. I was asked that if Ole Miss could do this, would you trade 2019 Dillard and 2019 Zabowski if you could get, they said 2007 Lance Lynn, but I subbed it out for 2010 Pomeranz. Essentially, if this team could add an SEC Pitcher of the Year to their roster, would that be a benefit if you had to give up Dillard and Zabowski to do it?
That's a really good question, man. Yeah, I think you do it. Dillard's the hang-up for me. I think you do it with Zabowski, but without much consideration.
Yeah,
but Dillard is kind of the hang-up here. But I think you do it because there's still enough guys that hit on this team and enough guys that produce runs. I think you need the pitcher more, right? I mean, it comes down to what does this team need more? And right now, they need a frontline starting pitcher, and so I think you would take it pretty easily. No?
Well, here's what he would do. So I mentioned this to Neil. I'll relay it to you here. If you did that, here's what your lineup would look like: Cooper Johnson behind the plate, and I'm just putting guys in positions. Positions, who cares? They're going to bat is the point. Johnson behind the plate, Elko at first, Adams at second, Kessinger at short, Keenan at third, Olynyk in left, Servideo in center, Cockrell in right, and then probably Fitzsimmons as your DH. But then here's where it kind of gets critical, where I changed my mind. I'll tell you this. So in the mailbag, I initially said no, I wouldn't do it. But then as I thought about it more, and I would, because here's the extra reason. Pomeranz on Friday, now all of a sudden Etheridge moves to Saturday, Hoagland on Sunday, or whomever you're throwing on Sunday. You definitely have the number one guy, the best on Friday nights. You're probably one of the top 2 or 3 best on Saturday, and then suddenly your bullpen's in different order here. So, yeah, I think even though you're giving up that huge stick with Dillard and a guy that has the best walk percentage on the team and all these things, you can't defense an ace who's going to go 7 to 9 innings every Friday night and win baseball games.
With Will Etheridge behind him on Saturday and a first-round pick on Sunday.
Yeah.
That'll play. If you thought about, we could ask Mike this on Friday. I'm sure that would receive.
Oh, good grief!
Well.
You know, he might come up and do your little Periscope with you if you tweet enough. You probably could pull that off. I just have a hunch.
It's only February. I got a while. I'll keep at it.
All right. So you covered a little Major League Baseball over the summer. What's your first thought on this Bryce Harper 13-year, $330 million deal?
Yeah, so as of this recording, I saw that deal reported as I was walking out of class about 3 minutes before you called. So what is the exact figures?
13 years, $330 million.
Well, I guess the first reaction is he is a Philadelphia Philly until he quits playing baseball. No, I mean 13-year deal. My gosh, I mean you figured once Machado got paid that Bryce Harper was going to get more money, and a lot of it. I was actually surprised he got that many more years, but it shifts the balance in the National League to now. You know, the Dodgers have kind of been the team to beat the last couple of seasons. I know you've had the Cubs and a couple other teams, but now they're the favorite out of the National League, and it makes, if you're a Braves fan, this is probably a pretty tough day because everyone in the division got better except for the Braves, it seems like, and obviously Miami is doing whatever they do. But that's a really tough NL East because the Nationals aren't necessarily going anywhere. They aren't as good as the Phillies, obviously, after this, but what a tough division.
Well, what the Phillies are banking on, I think, is you're going to get him for so many years in his prime, and it's just, hey, if we win a World Series in the first 8 years, who gives a crap after that? You know what I mean? Like, just max it out, and if we've got to pay the extra years on the back end, whatever. If it's justified and we've got some rings, nobody's going to care. And plus, I mean, he's going to be one of the most popular plays in baseball. You're going to sell merchandise. You're going to do all those things. Now, in saying that, we see what the Albert Pujols deal is doing right now. I mean, he still has like 4 years left or some crap. As a GM, if I was ever in that position, I don't think I would be able to give the 13 years, but I sort of understand it in a way. But it's a huge gamble because that means you've got to maximize that thing in probably the first 6 to 8 years of the deal.
You have to go into it with the thinking that the last, 6, 7 years are complete wild cards. You don't know what you're going to get. The Pujols deal was different because he's already on the wrong side of 30 when they gave we'll call it what it is. It was an idiotic contract. What is another interesting aspect of this to me is with as much problems as baseball has had with teams not trying to win, if you actually look across the National League now, you look at the East, and obviously the Mets got better. The Washington Nationals are still going to be formidable with that staff and some of the young guys they got coming up. The Braves won the division last year. Then, of course, the Phillies. Then you go to the Central where the Cardinals add Goldschmidt. The Cubs are the Cubs, and the Brewers got better. And then the Reds actually spent some money and tried to get better this offseason with Puig, and they retooled their pitching staff pretty well. And then you got at least the Rockies and the Dodgers in the West trying to win. And the team that's probably in that division that's going to finish last has Manny Machado. So you have a lot more teams in the National League trying to win. It seems like more of that problem is now shifting to the American League.
Well, in the National League, what I look at is not even necessarily 2019. It's like 2021 when the Phillies have added whatever else they've got. The Braves are going to be right in the middle of trying to win and the peak of whatever they're going to do, even though they've had a horrific offseason compared to everybody else. And then the Padres in that number one farm system is going to kind of be up too, even in the West. So I don't even think we're at the maturation date in the National League. I think we're still about 2 years away from it really becoming just a dang horse race down there.
I would agree because that's really 2021 is going to be the end of the Cubs window. You don't really know what the Cardinals or the Brewers will look like. You'd assume one of them would be trying to win at that point. And, so I don't think you're even at the peak of it yet, which is good for baseball because, 5-6 years ago, you have a third of the entire league trying to win games. on a year-in, year-out basis. So certainly a good thing, I think, that the talent is getting spread out and guys are finally starting to get paid. Another thing I thought was interesting is, like, they made it sound like this big crisis that these guys, it was taking this long for them to get paid. But isn't it more interesting from a news cycle's perspective to be talking about when Harper and Machado are going to sign instead of pitchers and catchers, throwing in a video through like a chain link fence in spring training somewhere in Arizona?
It took manipulation, but they've created almost an NBA free agency type week here with Harper and some of the things they're doing. Now, here's the question, though. When he's finally off the table, and I don't know why he was connected to this, but what's this meaning for the other guys that haven't signed? I mean, your Keuchels and those kind of dudes.
I think it's now their time. I think that the dam kind of broke where the water starts trickling over, and now you're going to get these second-tier guys get deals. So I think it's good news for them. And I think, when you see a team like the Phillies who already had spent another money, like the Phillies were probably already a division title contender without Harper, and then that just pushes them way over the top. So it's probably going to put pressure on teams that are either kind of about to hit their window, already in their window, to add pieces to try to win. So I think it's definitely good news for those guys, and probably pretty good news for their bank accounts pretty soon.
And my question is, when the time comes now, what in the world is Mike Trout's contract going to look like?
Man, so I was going to say somewhere around the 10-year range, but if Harper gets 13, what do you give the guy 2 decades to like send a message? I mean, this is getting ridiculous from a year's thing, because we were talking about this the other day on radio. I don't think baseball's problem with these owners' hesitancy to give these guys money is necessarily the money in and of itself. It's the amount of years they want on the contract. I mean, in what other industry are you giving people 10 or 13-year contracts? Like, would you give Anthony Davis or Giannis Antetokounmpo a 10-year contract at this point?
Well, of course
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed on how you pronounced that, by the way.
Wrong.
That was incredible.
Was that correct? It was
so.
A wild guess.
Was it really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fact if you want it to be one. So I think I nailed it. We'll go with that.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
My point being is, like, you're not going to give these guys, 10, 13-year deals. I mean, 13 is outrageous to me. I think there was a hockey contract a couple years ago, and you're not going to be able to get me to remember the guy's name. It was like a 15 or 16-year deal, and the league actually shot it down and, like, voided it. But that's got to be up there with one of the longest 10-year contracts in professional sports history, would it not?
Yeah, I think so. I would definitely think. I mean, we hear the 10 a lot, but anything over 10 is kind of stupid. You mentioned the Reds a second ago. You covered them last summer for MLB.com. Does being around that clubhouse every day, obviously it makes you follow them a little bit. Did it make you not really a fan, but sort of soft spot? Did it sort of turn you off how they reacted to some things? What's sort of a year later? What's the Reds like in your mind from a fondness standpoint?
I think you surmised it pretty accurately. It just makes me more interested in them because you saw. So the best way I could describe it, when I was there, they were a bad team, but they were a really interesting bad team because I think they were like 2 or 3 games over 500 in the stretch I was there. They got off to the horrible start, fired the manager. They're 4 or 5 years into a rebuild and seemingly just kind of lost in the wilderness. But then you had Matt Harvey and some of the younger guys start playing better baseball. So they were an interesting bad team, and they were winning games. And so now that they've kind of, Dick Williams and that new regime with Nick Kroll have kind of started to push the, pedal to the metal a little bit in terms of spending and trying to win. So seeing some of the stuff they've done with their pitching staff has been interesting. And so it'll be interesting to follow them this year. I'll definitely follow them closer than I have before. And they were in a weird predicament because you have this contract with Joey Votto that doesn't seemingly fit with the window they're trying to win in, but they actually have a really good lineup. Their rotation was just horrendous. And then now they add Sonny Gray and Rourke and kind of retool it a little bit. And now they're probably not a good rotation, but they're at least scrappy. So it's been interesting to see them transition from kind of a lost rebuild into there's now kind of a plan here and they might win some games. I think they're projected around 81 wins, which is way up from anything they've been in the last half decade.
Go back to Ole Miss here at the end of this. If I gave you one guy the rest of the way and I said I'll give you every stat for him the rest of the way, if it kind of helps you figure Ole Miss out, who do you take?
One stat?
Yeah, like one player. I'm going to give you all of his stats. What player would you take to try to predict the rest of the season if I said I'll give you every stat for this guy the rest of the year? Who you pick?
Ooh. Isn't it Houston Roth? I mean, if like what he looks like, if he does indeed end up being the Saturday guy, doesn't that tell you a lot? Because the offense obviously is always going to be there. It looks like there's plenty of options out of the bullpen. If they can shore up the Saturday thing, you'll know a lot more about this team and what they do in the regular season. So I think for me, it's probably Roth. Because even if he is in the bullpen, he's how is he helping them and how is he making them better there? And if he ends up in the pen, what has happened on Saturday, it's probably something good.
Yeah, that's a good point, and maybe you're right. I think as I think about it, Roth is the answer because, like you said, if he's in the bullpen and especially if he's productive, that just means Zach Phillips or somebody else has been pretty dang good on Saturday, and then that almost goes to the worst case scenario for Ole Miss is if you've got Roth with all these weekend starts and then it's bad, you go, oh well, crap, they're scuffling on Saturday and can't figure it out. They can't get anybody in that spot. So no, that's probably a pretty good one. And then I'm curious, just because I know how far Mike wants to give leashes and everything, I would kind of like to know sort of how Caracci does over the next month, even though that wouldn't be my pick. But if you gave me kind of an add-on there, I think knowing Caracci's lines and seeing whether they have back end of the bullpen problems would be something pretty significant as they get into the season.
Don't you think the most of what they were worried about was, I don't want to say eliminated, but they probably felt a lot better once they saw what he was, and they've probably seen it in bullpens and stuff recently, but once they saw in game action what he was hitting on the radar gun last weekend?
Yeah, 92 to 94 for this time of the year is perfectly normal for him. So I think they would have been even more, they would have been freaked out in general if they'd have seen 89 to 91 or 88 to 90 or something along those lines. Which kind of brings me to my last thing. You think Mike is at the point where he trusts Connor Green to kind of be that bridge guy as the season moves forward in high leverage innings?
He's a really interesting story because you've covered this way longer than I have. When is the last time you've seen a guy have a really significant role, whether it's a starter out of the pen as a freshman, pretty much just go MIA for teams in terms of meaningful situations? I think Green ended up getting 12 appearances as a sophomore and 9 as a last year, but none of them were, at least off the top of my head, meaningful. Have you ever seen a guy kind of resurge in his senior year like this?
No, not that had that kind of freshman year. I mean, you've seen the guys find it really late, the Scott Weathersbys and some of those people, but no, Green is about as unique as you can find for Mike because he also changed arm angles, for goodness sake. I mean, he's a guy that was fairly decent, had some control issues in the middle of his career, which is something he did not have in high school. He sort of had Hoagland-like high school numbers from a command standpoint. He drops down, throws sidearm, admits to us over the weekend or some point that he wasn't very comfortable doing it, that he's just now kind of back comfortable over the top. And he looks like he did as a freshman, except more mature. So, I mean, he has a chance to maybe be that surprise that carries this team. Usually Mike finds one of those where somebody sort of reinvents themselves in some way, but I've seen nothing this drastic. And, he comes in the 6th inning Saturday against Tulane. There's 2 runners on. They're on the corners. There's 1 out. Tulane's got the lead, and you thought, hey, he walks somebody or they hit 1 out of the yard here. This thing's in deep trouble, and instead, 2 pitches, 2 outs. He gets out of the next inning, too. If he can be anywhere near that kind of guy, I really like what they got out of Taylor Broadway on Tuesday. I thought the stuff was really good. It gives them a chance to get to a back end that features, Caracci and Akazi, and then, Caleb Hill if he can harness it, because there's no doubt he has talent. He's just got to kind of figure it out, and he's not quite there yet.
And to your original question as to whether Mike trusts him or not, doesn't it feel like a Caracci thing from a year ago in the sense that, if he keeps producing and keeps being efficient, Mike's going to give him more and more situations until things go awry and kind of let it build on itself almost.
Oh, yeah. He's going to certainly give those possibilities and kind of see where it goes. So, all right, last thing, closing up, appreciate the time. Are they going to get the sweep this weekend? What do you think?
I'll go yes, just because we were recording a podcast last night and Colin Brister showed me a couple of Long Beach's offensive numbers, and they were honestly a bit baffling. So I'm going to go sweep because I don't think they're going to score many runs.
Yeah, it feels like if there's those two offenses are on the field, Ole Miss is going to find a way to win 3 baseball games. So good luck on the radio. I appreciate it, bud.
Sounds good. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks to Brian for joining us, giving us some time yesterday afternoon before his own work duties. The podcast brought to you in part by Scripted Jewelry, scriptedjewelry.com. Just head on over to the website, see all the ways they can make the gift-buying purchase easy for you. Somebody in Spring, Texas just bought something. You can see that online. They give you ideas. They give you options that have been recently purchased by customers, a lookbook, a frequently asked questions section, a sizing guide, and much more. Turnaround times are great, and they'll save you money in the process as well. Rebels10, REBELS10, to get 10% off with Scripted Jewelry. So see all different ways to customize and personalize that special gift. ScriptedJewelry.com.
Podcast also brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you're thinking about your summer trips, and I know many people are, if you're thinking about your summer trips, whether it's to the Gulf, whether it's on a cruise, whether you're going to California to Napa, or whatever the case may be, whether you're going to Scotland, Ireland for the big golf trip you've always talked about, now's the time to get in touch with John Edwards. He is part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows him to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. What you do is you call John, you give him some parameters. Here's what I want to do. Here's how many days. Here's what we're trying to get out of this trip. And give him a budget. And then sit back and do nothing. Because what he'll do is he'll give you a ton of options that you would never find on your own by his connections in the travel business. And you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. 901-494-3387 or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. It's a podcast that's also brought to you by Oxford University Bank. OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home and all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with the personal touch. When you call OUB, you speak directly with the live person, all without having to press 10 buttons and without a 5-minute wait. OUB offers its customers the absolute best cash checking account. It's called Kasasa, and with Kasasa, OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000. And with Kasasa, ATM fees nationwide are refunded. OUB also offers online bill pay and mobile check deposit using its online app. To learn more about OUB, check out liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured.
Podcast also brought to you by G&M Pharmacy there on South Lamar in Oxford. You know, you can get your medication delivered to you with your home or workplace every single day. They also offer MedSync to make sure everything is on schedule and easy for you. I've been telling you for the last week or so about the CBD oil. They are now offering its pharmaceutical grade. It's FDA approved, and you know that it will potentially help with multiple different conditions such as depression, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and more. It is, it's an all-natural supplement with many health benefits. You can find out more or just get your medications moved over to G&M, 662-236-2222. Brian and I talked about Long Beach State's putrid offense to this point. Here's the numbers for that. If you're curious, you're going to see two different profiles of teams. Again, Long Beach State 0-7 on the season. Played a lot of close games, but it's mostly because they pitch it somewhat okay. Offensively, though, here's their run totals through their first 7 games. 2, 2, 1, 0, 0, 3, 2. Those are the run totals for Long Beach State. So if there's ever a weekend for Ole Miss pitching to get a little healthy, it's right now, or you might want to at least move that panic button over towards you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if what you just said after that, if Long Beach puts up 7, 6, and 8 this weekend, you might have a problem.
Yeah, they can't hit a lick. They're not good. I mean, they do pitch it. I mean, Florida beat them 8-2, 5-2, 3-1. So, I mean, they held the Gators in check somewhat from a mound standpoint.
Yeah.
But then they got swept by Nevada 1-0, 5-3, 3-2.
You don't see a lot of 1-0 college baseball games.
I bet that thing was quick.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that one.
That's a beat writer special right there.
The opener at Nevada last Friday.
You'll never see a bunch of writers happier than a 2-0 game.
Yeah, talk about a guy getting bad looks. You're in a baseball press box, and it's like top 6, and it's moving along, and one guy goes, hey, this thing's moving real quick. You look at him like, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah,
An 8-run inning is coming.
Yeah, a few other words get mentioned.
Yeah, but
you always know it's a rookie in there when he's, man, we're already in the 6th inning. Like, you son of a bitch. Here we go.
We're going to play 14 innings tonight because of you. Thanks.
On cue. I try to do the reverse jinx in football games. I'll start saying in the third quarter, this has overtime written all over it, and that way it doesn't have overtime written all over it.
Is that just science? That's
science. That works. If you never say it in a football game, never, ever. If someone goes, man, this game's really moving. Oh, my, those are fighting words.
Let's see. We had a couple things I want to talk about today. DK Metcalf making a lot of news yesterday with his body fat percentage, which I still don't believe. I think it's higher than that, just from the standpoint of it takes a certain amount of fat for a human to function. They had DK at 1.6. I don't think bodybuilders are at 1.6.
Yeah, I've asked around about this a little bit. As someone who has a body fat percentage that is a little higher than 1.9%. At first, I was very jealous, and then I heard it, and I started asking around. I've had a couple of people who are more medically savvy than I tell me that it's not humanly possible. That when someone measures body fat, that there's no real way to get that precise, but that they did not believe that 1.9% was actually possible.
So the answer is just really freaking fit, whatever that number is.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying, hey, in reality, he's a fat ass. I'm not saying that. It might be like 4%, which is still unfreaking believable.
What, 228 pounds? DK comes in combine measurements at 6'3" and 3/8 and 228.
Yeah, he had gotten up to 244 is what I was told yesterday. And I was talking to people at Ole Miss in the football program who would know, and that he had started scaling back for this measurement. So, look, it's certainly possible that it's down there close to that number. But I'm not pretending to be a mad scientist here. So if I'm wrong, don't attack me on message boards. Today's not a good day for that. But I've talked to people in the medical thing who say they don't think that's humanly possible.
He has
not look like he looks. He looks too good physically to be at that low of a body fat percentage. That what I was told was anybody who was at that body fat percentage, basically they would have a difficult time functioning. And it's very clear that DK is functioning pretty well.
Yeah. He signed with Under Armour, by the way. Under Armour announced that yesterday.
AJ signed with Nike.
He did, yeah. AJ comes in at 6 foot and 4/8, so 6.5 feet. I don't know why we're doing 4/8. 226 pounds, and then wingspan, as we knew, a little lighter than DK just because of height. AJ at 78-inch wingspan, DK at 82 and 7/8 on a wingspan. So. Let's see, Greg. Well, let's go here. You and I kind of looked at this and went, wow, because I guess we knew it, but again, we obviously know a lot we don't talk about much these last couple of days. Dawson Knox really, really helped himself with just some measurements yesterday. 6'4" and 3/8, so almost 6'4.5", 254, and about an 80.5-inch wingspan. Dawson got a shot here as he moves forward.
God, he and we really should compare notes because we're so similar.
You should. Well, and you have weighed 254 too before, so that would be
have weighed 254. Yeah.
Did your 254 look like Dawson's 254?
We both had 2 arms and 2 legs.
Yeah, and 254 pounds.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of similarities. No. I'm interested to see what kind of career he has. The NFL likes him.
I got a sneaky feeling he has a good one.
Yeah, I do too.
Bright kid.
Yeah, there's real good, great work ethic. Very bright.
Just didn't get used.
No, just
didn't get used.
He's the one that.
No, he's got to catch the football. He had some drop issues. Got to catch it.
He did
every time.
Oh yeah, in the NFL you got to catch the ball or else you'll be out of work.
Laquan sees that right now.
Yeah, you're out of work if you don't catch in the NFL. Yeah, there's a chance that he's the poster child for Ole Miss offensive underachievement over the last 2 years. But now he's got to catch it, and that is going to be the issue for him. I mean, that's going to be his pro day. I wonder at the pro day, like I'm going to guess none of those guys run a 40 that day unless they're absolutely convinced they're going to blow it away.
Well, and see, I think it's the other way. I think you only run it if you need to run it.
Yeah.
If you've already run a good one, the heck with it.
Yeah, done.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like ACT scores. You get one number and then you stop is what you do. You can't lose that number.
Yeah, I'm excited about sitting down with DK and kind of just, kind of comparing notes on our workouts and such, because I have a feeling that like he and I can learn a lot from one another.
He could probably kill P90X. He'd be really good at that.
Yeah, I don't think it would be the greatest challenge in the world for DK at this point. He probably would do that while he was like sipping a water and talking on the phone. Not
like we would do where we get out of bed the next morning and can't move. Have a hard time getting down the hall after like day 3.
Yeah, not like my first day of P90X where Tony said, hit the pause button, just keep. I said, I'm going to hit the pause button and go in here and vomit. Yeah, literally. But I did come back and hit. He said it was okay to hit pause, you guys, as long as you come back and hit play. And I did.
Yeah. I did. You listened to Tony. You kind of liked Tony there after you hated him.
I hated him at first, and then I started listening to him, and I realized he was a genius. Mm. Yeah, I wrote him I actually wrote him a letter, and he responded.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
I don't know if I knew that. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I liked Tony. Okay. I appreciate Tony.
Did you do 2 or 3?
No, I did. What I did was P90X back to back. I basically did P182X. I did 182 straight days.
But you didn't do the P90X2 or the P90X3 programs.
No, and I've thought about it.
We have a Beachbody subscription just on our TV, so it has every Beachbody program, so it sits there. But
yeah, I've thought about it.
Yeah, I don't know. The other guy, and I don't know what's going to happen with him. There's been some talk about potentially he could be an elite guard at the next level, just because his run blocking is so good. He's been he's not the elite pass blocker that like Laramie was. Greg Little, though, tool-wise, 6'5" and 2/8 and an 85-inch wingspan yesterday. 85.
Yeah, it's big.
That makes money. 85-inch wingspan makes money.
Yeah, all of those guys made money just being measured.
Yeah.
Why can't we make money just by being measured, Chase?
It
doesn't seem fair, really.
Well, I mean, I did, and I'm sure, I don't know why this made me think of it. I guess I do. You mentioned greatest pod in the South. I'm assuming Jay writes your guys' your cut lines and things.
Yeah.
Because the second note of what you talked about was Gabe's preparing for 4 to 6 inches this weekend.
Well, that was my line.
Was it? He stole it?
Yeah, he stole it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my line. Gabe was talking about the weather this weekend, and he said something about it. I said, so, in other words, you're expecting 4 to 6 inches this weekend.
Okay. Javon Patterson, what do you make of him at the next level? 6'2" and 7/8, 307.
If you told me that he made it as a guy that could be a guard and an emergency center, I'd buy it. Very smart kid. A phenomenal person. He's going to be great in an NFL locker room.
Very underrated at the college level because of just the teams not being very good most of his time.
Yeah, I mean, if Ole Miss had been
played a lot of freaking snaps at Ole Miss.
Yeah, if Ole Miss had been a 10-win team, he'd have gotten a lot of all-SEC type stuff. I don't know. I won't be surprised if he ends up being a really good pro player. I don't, it's obviously on the interior because he doesn't have the height to play on the outside, but he's a guy that, look, if NFL teams would know, they don't have to worry about what he does on Monday night. He's not going out. Or if he does go out, he's not going to do something stupid. And in the NFL, there's a value in that.
Mm-hmm. Last couple minutes, what are you expecting tomorrow in Fayetteville?
I think this is going to be a really motivated team. I think it's going to be a really unified team. I think they know how close they are. I think Arkansas will have to play its its very highest A game to beat them. I actually think Ole Miss is winning, and I've thought it for a while, and I think Ole Miss is winning the game, and I think they're going to win in Columbia next Saturday, and I think the Kentucky game is going to be fun to watch. I'm not going to predict a win because Kentucky's so good, but look, that was a very disappointed locker room Wednesday night. There were some people who were devastated, obviously, but they reconvened yesterday and looked at that film, and they now, if there was any doubt that you could play with the best of the best, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's gone. They lined up against a national title contender, because the last time they played an elite team was LSU, and it didn't go well. And they've grown since then. They lined up against an elite Tennessee team, and it's a really good team, and probably should have won the game. So they know, and look, you gotta. Here's the thing: there's a little bit of growth in sports. You see this with baseball teams a lot over the course of a season, over the course of years. I think if the pitching allows it, I think you'll see this in late May and June with Ole Miss. It's just my opinion. Sometimes you're not quite ready to win, and you have to grow a little. And what they also saw in that final minute on Wednesday night was a team that's been together for a long time, a team that's played a lot of basketball together, with the game on the line, down by 3 after Blake Henson's 2 free throws. They had 2 great possessions where they get the ball where they want to get the ball, and they get a shot and they make it. And credit Tennessee. But I think this team will learn from that. I still think this team has its best basketball game ahead of it. I still think there's a game coming, whether it's in Nashville or in the tournament or whatever, or maybe it's Kentucky on Tuesday night. I think this team it still has its signature game in front of it. I really believe that. I've felt that for a while. As Wednesday night was unfolding, I thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is the game. But maybe it's Tuesday. Maybe it's in Nashville. Maybe it's in the tournament. On the flip side, there's no room for a letdown tomorrow. There's no room for a lackadaisical effort. I don't think Bud Walton's going to be rocking. I don't think the atmosphere is going to be anything like the Pavilion. They're going to have to generate their own energy. And that's a challenge sometimes after you played in an environment like the Pavilion the other night where the energy was being fed into their veins by the Ole Miss fans. They're going to have to produce their own energy and their own excitement and all of that. But I think they're winning. I think it's a I'm not going to call it a signature win because I don't know that it's a guarantee. Beating Arkansas right now, I think, is a quadrant 1. It might not.
It's right on that fringe.
It might not end up being a quadrant 1. Like Arkansas losing to Ole Miss tomorrow might knock them out of quadrant 1.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and go that win puts them in. I kind of think it does, but I'm not willing to guarantee that. But boy, it puts them. If it doesn't put them in the tournament, it puts them on the absolute crest of the tournament, the precipice of the tournament, where from that point forward, everything would have to go. Let's put it this way. If you told me that Ole Miss won tomorrow and didn't make the tournament, I would tell you that meant that they lost to Kentucky, Missouri on Thursday of the SEC tournament, and that everything that could go wrong on the bubble went wrong.
Yeah. You mentioned the energy thing. Arkansas has kind of got that same thing in front of them because they're coming off the tough loss at Rupp where they had all the energy in the world too, and now they come home having to play not only with your own energy but also in a dead building that's your own building. So Ole Miss, Arkansas tomorrow, noon tip for that one. Plenty of coverage at rebelgrove.com, football, recruiting, and more. It's a junior day this weekend, and then we'll be back with another podcast on Friday. On Monday. Talk to you then.